Howdy, fuckheads! This should go without saying due to the fact that I quite literally have the warning sign right behind me, but this channel is not intended for persons under the age of 18. This is due to the fact that there tends to be cussing in these videos, and there also tends to be, depending on the mood we're in, excessive violence. I personally don't care how old you are, but the YouTube algorithm does, and I personally am not in the mood to be a parent for people who are too lazy to look after their children. That being said, enjoy the video. Greetings, my fellow fanatics of the world. You are speaking with Gfanatic 94, back with another video for you all today, joined once again by the Iron Noah.
Up from the depths, 30 stories high, breathes fire, and in the sky, Godzilla bum-ba-dum, Godzilla bum-ba-dum.
Is it bad that I actually kind of want to see the opening to the Hanna-Barbera Godzilla with you singing the opening theme?
Oh god, it's gonna be so out of sync, but that's gonna be fun.
That would be fucking hilarious. But yeah, guys, welcome to the last video that we are going to be making for, this 70th anniversary celebration of the King of the Monsters. We started off with a retrospective / look back on the 2014 Godzilla movie, and then there was the last video we did where we were basically just taking a look at the debate between Gemstone and Godzilla Jr., and people who believe that they're the same kaiju and people who don't believe they're the same kaiju. But now, ladies and gentlemen, for this final video of today, we have a special little treat for you. We all know that the Monsterverse, despite how good it is, it could obviously use some work. So, me and Noah have decided that we are both going to run through our picks, or our pitches for what we would do if we were in charge of the Monsterverse from beginning to end.
So,
And Noah,
with that being
you're
said,
going to be the one who starts us off today.
Oh,
What?
oh boy. So, well, okay, well, let's see. First thing I'll start with is the thing I'm going to keep. That thing that I'm going to keep is 100% the backstory and lore, because oh my god, Legendaries was, and they fucking hit hard with that kind of backstory for Goji. Ancient god type shit I loved.
Yeah.
Honest, because especially when we were in the 2019 scene where they were gonna go revive Goji and we saw all those ruins.
Yeah, the fucking temple that was erected in Godzilla's honor.
Yep. Alright, that's just the main thing that I'm going to keep. With that being said, the thing that I'm going to try and change now is, with the whole universe namesake being, of course, the Monsterverse, while this is definitely going to be, like, a lot harder to do, and costs probably a lot more to do, even though I feel like it's a bit of a debate, seeing as Saw -1 had, you know, less than about 13 million bucks to use.
Yeah.
By the way, that being said, what I would do is that once we finally get introduced to the monsters, particularly Goji, what I would do is try and have more close-ups of his face. Particularly, like, instances and scenes where he would be glancing down and looking at his surroundings.
Okay.
Because there's one thing I remember going on about the fucking thing back in 2014 was how people could barely fucking see his eyes, right?
Yeah.
They could hardly see that shit, so honestly, what I'd try and do is just mainly focus more on close-ups of Goji looking around at his surroundings and more or less following him around. That's a little instance of the 2014 movie there, which I very much like, is how they were trying to follow Godzilla. Because again, he was the one that was the hunter. He was the one that was listening in.
Right. He
However, the
was one
way
of the
that they
main
explained that,
protagonists.
yeah. However, the way they explained that was a bit upsetting because honestly, well, yes, of course, technology is always advanced in these movies. But yes, I
Yeah.
can see how they were doing that via sonar. But what I would like to see for the viewer perspective is after we are introduced to Godzilla, is mainly him and like I would have liked the scene where we're in the underwater, all the noise would go away, but then we just hear Mudos. However, we see Godzilla listening in visually.
Okay.
And of course, give him more movement to his face. Doesn't have to be his whole body, no. Just mainly his face to where we see him like something we definitely saw in the top GIF with Evolved Goji, where you see his face has emotion, right? He's looking
Yes.
at Mothra, he's raising his eyebrows, he's like, oh. And of course, we see in the 2014 one where he has that scowl, right?
Yeah.
There's a lot of possibilities with the facial rigs, especially when I watch animators start animating stuff.
Right, exactly.
Especially,
You can get so much fucking emotion without them saying a word.
yes, another example of getting emotion, even though you can't see the face, is the Star Wars series The Mandalorian,
I knew you
where
were gonna
we
bring
don't
it
see
up.
the
I
guy.
knew you were gonna bring this the fuck up. I knew it. I knew it. I knew it.
Like we barely see the guy's face, but we can tell he has so much emotion just by his voice. And with these being creatures of giant proportions that, of course, don't know English, we're going to want their face to be expressionate, like Kong. We know for a fact what Kong is feeling every now and then. Bro, you see that face, he's
Right.
like, whenever he was fucking dragging Goji and he was about to shoot him, he was like, oh shit!
Yeah. Yeah, Kong definitely has a ton more characterization than Godzilla in the MonsterVerse at this point, which is honestly upsetting, but more
It
on that
is.
later.
Like, and for 2014, I get it. They're definitely being more realistic because, again, I know for a fact that real life lizards do most of the time have a static face, but they do still show emotion just by looking at their eyes alone. And also looking at their head movements. It's the eyes and the head movements that show just plenty of emotion on its own. Especially when we come to down to animals, like dogs. There are a lot of dogs that aren't vocal at all, but we can tell what they might just be thinking by not only their facial expression, but by their head movement.
Yeah.
Same could be said for cats. We know cats are more or less the quiet type unless they want something from us. However, we just
Right.
very much see their head movement and eyes just telling us so much. And again, as I said, yeah, lizards most of the time, lizards, reptiles, again, yeah, they have static faces a lot of the time, but their head movements, their eyes, that could still be enough to tell us something, which is something I wish they could have done for Goji.
An interesting
So
idea.
that's one of the main things I would change is simply more close-up shots of Goji's face displaying emotion.
See, now, I thought you were going to say something completely different. I am genuinely, surprisingly, and pleasantly shocked. I want to hear more.
I am mainly saying this because if I were to ever start my own series, which you know some of the plot points of, because I have that shit.
Yeah.
I do very much not have. Uh, okay, it is probably still gonna be in, but in terms of what I do for my own kaiju-esque show slash movie stuff, yes, I will have them talk, but it'll be in their own language, of course. But we'd
Yeah.
still perceive it as English. But even then, I won't be having them talking all that much. I'm still going to solely rely on expression
Okay.
because that's something that I love watching in movies more focused on animals. That one of those movies being Bambi, actually. Oh my god, I missed that
Oh,
movie.
okay.
Because I'm pretty sure the majority of that movie, Bambi herself did not talk. We had was, her facial expressions.
Yeah.
So that being said, I would have very much liked to see Goji just have more expression in his face. Something that was quite upsetting to not see much in the MonsterVerse when they did it so much for the ape himself, Kong, and Scar King later on.
Right.
Oh god, especially Scar King. No, that they went overboard. Well, not overboard, but wow, they fucking captured Scar King perfectly.
Yeah, damn near, actually.
Especially when he saw Godzilla about to charge up, he was like, huh?
He's like, oh,
Huh?
fuck.
Huh? Is that motherfucker a star or what? Cause I'm about to fucking die!
Is that motherfucker style? What? You brilliant bastard, Noah.
And
Okay.
that being said as well, not only would I love to see more facial rigs for Goji, but that being said, one of MonsterVerse's latest additions, Shimu, or Shimo, because again, she had so much more potential for story. However, they honestly, from the movie itself, I feel like they really only treated it second-handedly.
Okay.
However, it would have been much more interesting to see more expression from her face. I do love what they did with the body movement. No, I love that. That clearly showed what Shima was going through.
Yeah.
And I love that part. However, I would have still liked to see more on for her face, more close-up shots of what she could have been feeling, all that pain that crystal was causing her.
Yeah.
And another point I'd like to bring up, because this was shown in a arguably canon, non-canon comic now. Fuck you off, Legendary. God damn it.
Yeah.
Where we saw the only other species of Goji that was left, Dagon. We are really left to believe that Goji is the last of his species. However, as I've probably pointed out before, sometime maybe, is that Shimu bears a lot of resemblance, not only in terms of just looks, but probably not biology, because she definitely lives in the Arctics, but in terms of just like physical and maybe biology, yeah, because again, they're both. I think if she was radioactive, it's never said if she was or not. I know for a fact she's frozen cold, but
Okay, brother. Let's
much
let's
more.
get this out the way right now. Something as big and as powerful as Shimo, she most certainly has radioactive properties. Let's just get that out the way.
Okay, but yeah, overall, I genuinely think that there could have been a bit more of a connection for Goji and Shimo there, because again, we are definitely led to believe that Godzilla is the only one of his species left, and while it's definitely safe to say that with Goji's pride, he would definitely prefer it being that way.
Yeah.
But after the release of GXK, I am very much inclined to believe that Godzilla is definitely a one of his kind for his species, because we see that the Iwi underground tribe call him the monster that ate a star, right?
Yeah.
That not all Godzillas possess the ability of atomic breath. And again, that's definitely reinforced with the fact that the only comic we ever saw any other species that's like Godzilla, Aegon, I do not remember him once using his atomic breath. As a matter of fact, let me grab the comic right now.
Oh, you actually have the
Hold on.
physical comic? That's fucking
Yep,
awesome,
I
dude.
have a physical copy of Godzilla Aftershock right here. Hold on, let's look through it. Okay, first instance of Dagon. Let's see. Okay, he's facing off the Mudo Prime. Yeah, he's being worshipped by humans. Okay, flipping through the pages. Yeah, he goes against with Widow Prime. Yeah, no, he was just resorting to melee combat, and he got defeated. There was no instance of an atomic breath.
That's awesome.
No
That's
instance.
actually awesome.
So with that being left as that, Goji is definitely a one of his kind for his species. He evolved, which could either be natural or unnatural for his species. We don't know. So with that being said, I feel like they could have definitely done something for Godzilla and Shimo because they are very much alike.
Yeah.
Let's be honest, they very much are.
Yeah. And while they may not be the same species, they are most certainly very closely related to one another in terms of anatomical and biological, connections. I'm not
And
saying
again,
that they're
and
cousins or something. I'm just saying that Godzilla and Shimo, their species, likely were very similar to one another.
yeah. And with that being said, there are definitely real world examples of two not different species, but two different kinds of animals breeding together and having a offspring that's an offshoot of both of them. We have the liger, and I'm pretty sure there was one with a polar bear and a normal bear, right? The brown bear.
That would be the Pizzly Bear, yeah, or the Growler
Yeah,
Bear,
yeah, no. There
whichever
are many
whichever your
instances in real
persuasion.
life where there are there are two different animals. While yes, they're technically from the same family, but they're still different, which
Yeah,
could be very much the same for Godzilla and Shimu. Again, they both have very similar properties.
yeah,
I'm just gonna put out blatantly the primary examples by one. Both of them, they're reptiles, of course. Both of them have a energy like ray that they can both emit from their mouth as an attack, and also buddy use it as a fucking intimidation display. Hell, even Shimu had a frosting aura, which Godzilla, when he's powered up, of course, has a radiating aura, as we all know.
yeah,
So that being said, it would have very much been nice to see a bit more of a connection between the two.
yeah. I can get behind that.
So what the main things that change is just like, of course, in the later movies, I'd still try and keep that more impact of giant masses colliding with each other.
Yeah,
I'd very much like to keep that. So that being said, I would main changes I just do was have more face rigs to show more expression, and of course keep more movies in the same line as the fucking I just said it. Oh yeah, realism. Keep keep it realistic. Like we're not completely realistic, but like realistic enough to where we can feel two giant masses colliding with each other.
Yeah, which is something that
But I would
GVK and
say there's
GXK
definitely
kind of
some
struggled
leeway.
with.
Yeah, I would definitely say there's definitely some leeway for Kong. I admit that because there's definitely leeway for him more. It's just that for Godzilla, especially, I'd keep it more in terms of the realism part for the mass. It's mainly it.
Okay.
And that whole bit lasted a lot longer than I thought it would.
Oh, it's not, dude. We're here for your take on what you would do for the MonsterVerse. Take your time. I don't give a shit. All right.
Either way, that's the main things I'd try and change about the MonsterVerse. Simply just more shots of the kaiju's face showing emotion.
All right. I can get
And of
behind that.
course, and of course, you know, that whole thing with Shimo and Godzilla.
Oh. Okay.
But not in terms of like an actual, uh reading that kind of stuff, but just overall more connection.
Okay. All right then. I can get behind that.
Anyways, I'll just hand it off to you, bro.
Okay then. All right, ladies and gentlemen, I am going to give y'all my pitch for what I would do if I was in charge of the MonsterVerse. Now, first things first. Like Noah said, keeping the primary backstory of the prehistoric titans and shit like that needs to be priority number one, because you need to have some sort of mystery and some sort of unknown factor to these gigantic titanic creatures. And what better way to do that than to have them come from prehistoric times? That's just a given. That being said, though, now that Toho has to routinely keep, not Toho, but that Legendary has to routinely keep, retconning, if you will, the MonsterVerse in order to keep in line with Toho's, rules and guidelines that, they had for Godzilla, I will go ahead and admit that there is one major change that I would make to the backstory of Godzilla. As Noah said in the Godzilla Aftershock comic, was it?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. In Godzilla Aftershock, Godzilla's ancestor Dagon never used his atomic breath. So therefore, Noah believes he did not have an atomic breath. What I would do is, let's start off with this. I would absolutely lean much more into that sort of aspect for Godzilla. Since one of Toho's rules is that there can only be one Godzilla, fine. We'll play the rules and we'll make the rules even better. What I would do is I personally would have the backstory of Godzilla be that he is essentially the chosen one of his species. Imagine, if you will, there's a species of extra large carnivorous dinosaur, or some sort of large, like alpha-esque sort of animal dinosaur that existed all the way back in the Cretaceous period, or maybe across the dinosaur, maybe across all three dinosaur periods, and those would be the Godzillasaurus. Well, then let's kill 4 birds with 1 stone here. Explaining exactly where Godzilla's species went, why Godzilla is so different from the rest of his species, why the ape from Godzilla Dominion was able to actually beat him, and why, that image stuck with Godzilla for the rest of his life, and why Godzilla is powerful enough to take on the entirety of the great apes in a grand war on his own. All that could be explained without being retconned by the following. the Godzillasaurus species, decides that in order to keep peace and balance on the planet, they needed to basically select a chosen one of their species. So the strongest and the most, the strongest and the most capable warrior was chosen to undergo a process that, through the absorption of a special form of radiation, would transform him into Godzilla. And actually, that would also kill 5 birds with one stone, actually, because as an added bonus, that would explain why Godzilla is so egotistical.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, killing 5 birds with one stone off the bat. Now, Noah, you hit the nail on the head. Absolutely more personality and more expression from the monsters. I want to go into these movies feeling like the kaiju that are on screen are not just some random giant beast that wants to destroy or protect us. I want them to feel fucking human. I want them to feel like they are either pure evil or purely good, but I want them to feel like they are a person. I want them to feel like they are showing emotion and like they are, like they're an actual person that you can interact with. Which is something that I feel gets overlooked with Ghidorah a lot of the times, because Ghidorah was, let's face it, he was evil as fuck. He was a sadistic bastard. But this motherfucker...
Yeah.
What?
Yeah, no, I was just agreeing with Ghidorah part.
Yeah. But even so, Ghidorah showed personality. Every single time Ghidorah was on screen in this movie, he demanded the screen's presence, and he demanded that the entirety of the scene revolved around him. And a large chunk of that is due to the fact that you could clearly see the difference in the personalities between Ghidorah and his 3 heads. You could clearly see that all 3 of them had their own distinct personalities and desires. And you could also plainly see that, despite the fact that they're so different from each other, they still had a familial bond. They were like brothers. They were like the Ninja Turtles minus 1. Okay? I just realized that. Anyways, but now, here's something that I'm going to mention off the rip. I do not want to have a cinematic universe where every movie has to feature Godzilla and Kong. Yes, Godzilla and Kong are the primary driving focuses of the Monsterverse. I get that. But you do not need these 2 specifically in a movie in order to make the movie sell. So, here's the deal. What I would do is I would start off with, just like the Monsterverse did start off, I would start off with a Godzilla movie, much like Godzilla 2014 did, and then I would go on with a King Kong movie, like Kong Skull Island, but then I would move on and I would create a feature film featuring one of the 3 most popular Toho Kaiju there are, Rodan, Mothra, or King Ghidorah. Me personally, I would do King Ghidorah because I fucking love Ghidorah in the Monsterverse. And I absolutely adored what they did with him. For Ghidorah's film, it would likely take place before he went to Earth, and it would be a story of... It would most likely be a story of Ghidorah doing one of 2 things. Either A, since it's implied that he's a younger brother, it would be basically a fight, but it would basically be either a movie where he... was struggling to get away from his parent and his older brother, and essentially going off to find territory of his own, encountering threat after threat until he finally got to Earth. Or, and this would be my personal favorite idea out of these 2 concepts, have Ghidorah be a destroyer of worlds. have Ghidorah. I personally would want to see a movie where we get to see the events that were explained in the Showa series, where Ghidorah destroyed the planet Venus. I would adore to see a movie like that. A solo movie of King Ghidorah, basically like a horror movie. Essentially like a horror movie with this giant three-headed golden dragon and the last survivors of an entire planet maybe trying to desperately get off the planet and avoid catching this giant three-headed demon's attention. I would absolutely pay good fucking money to see that. Alright? Like, one thing that the Monsterverse immediately lost me on, the second I saw the pitch for Godzilla King of the Monsters and the fact that they were bringing Mothra, Rodan, and King Ghidorah into the mix, one thing that I, off the rip, was disappointed in was the fact that we weren't getting any movies between Kong Skull Island and Godzilla King of the Monsters to explain who the fuck Mothra, Rodan, or Ghidorah even were. And that is a huge missed opportunity. That, like, straight up, that is one of the biggest problems with the Monsterverse, is that every single movie in the Monsterverse has to involve either Godzilla or Kong in some way. And it's like, guys, do not bring that that bullshit to me of, oh, only Godzilla and Kong are the only ones who would sell because no one knows who the others were. Bitch, that has been proven wrong twice in the past, and I am not gonna sit here and listen to that bullshit. Get the fuck out of here. Mothra and Rodan are living fucking well, not living, but the closest to living examples that is a false claim and should not be taken seriously. So, yeah, no, straight up. Mothra and Rodan weren't even owned by Toho in their first movies. They were bought by Toho specifically because their popularity rivaled Godzilla's. That being said, however, if we want to have Godzilla and Kong in every single movie for whatever fucking reason, there is also a blueprint for that as well in the form of the Heisei series, where Godzilla was in pretty much every movie, but he grew and evolved as a person the more he fought these other kaiju. So you could go that route with it too. Me personally, however, I want to see other kaiju getting their own solo movies. I want to see other kaiju getting their own solo films so that when Godzilla and this other monster eventually meet, it doesn't feel like two foreign objects coming into contact with each other. It feels like these two have personality, and we feel conflicted because we don't know who we want to win the conflict. And straight up, the first time Godzilla and King Kong, one of the things that pissed me off about Godzilla vs. Kong, the first time Godzilla and Kong ever meet in a movie, it's just gonna be those two across the whole film. No other fucking monsters, none of that fucking lazy-ass Mechagodzilla shit. No. Straight up, just a one-on-one match between Godzilla and Kong. Straight the fuck up. As far as the movies go, I don't know exactly what order of movies these would go in, but I also do know that was one of the biggest letdowns for me in King of the Monsters. Make no mistake, King of the Monsters is a great fucking movie. It is fantastic. But for me, and for a lot of other Godzilla fans, we knew who the fuck these characters were. None of the other people in the theater who hadn't experienced Godzilla at all beforehand knew who the fuck these guys were. None of these other people who had never seen a Godzilla movie before knew who the fuck Ghidorah was. None of them knew who Rodan or Mothra was. So it would have been a good idea for them to introduce these monsters in separate films. Even if you had to use Godzilla in those movies, which you didn't, it still would not be a good idea to just throw everything at the fucking screen like the Monsterverse has been doing for the last 3 movies. And I'm sorry, but Monarch Legacy of Monsters, I swear, that fucking show is god-awful. Fuck that show. I don't care. That show's garbage. It can go to hell. Alright?
Well, speaking of the show, I will say, at the very least, unlike some Marvel shows, it did have good CGI.
It did. It very much did. That's...
We gotta give it credit for that, at least.
I do. But just the shit writing. That being said, though, yeah, that would be the main primary things that I would change up about the MonsterVerse. More solo movies featuring monsters other than Godzilla and Kong, and just overall a slower build-up. A slower build-up establishing each of the monsters' personalities before they come into contact with one another. And, yeah, dude, I don't really know where I would go with it after that, but there's obviously always going to be more. One other thing that I'm going to mention before we leave is the fact that take it slow with the monsters. Introduce the less powerful kaiju first, and then introduce the less powerful of Godzilla's villains first, and then work your way up the chain. Like Ghidorah's a solid start for Godzilla villain to get a solo movie, but then go maybe onto Orga or Megaguirus or something like that, and then work your way up to the more powerful monsters like Space Godzilla and Destroya. No matter how you swing it, a longer build-up is always going to be a better idea.
Yeah, no, you're definitely right there. Give it a good build-up, and boom.
Dude, I'm like, I want to say wet dream, but honestly, that's going a little too far. But dude, I would fucking pay so much good money to see a solo King Ghidorah film, just depicting him as what he was before he came to Earth, a destroyer of worlds. I just want to see the spectacle of a giant three-headed golden dragon just destroying everything around him, and the people of this planet desperately trying to find a way to either counteract the beast's attack or just escape. That would be an instant classic right there. I guarantee it.
Oh yeah, no. Especially if you were to make it as to where for a good majority of the movie, he's encased in a storm, like he is in King of the Monsters most of the time.
Yes! Exactly!
So that would definitely be an amazing horror flick.
Yeah. But with that being said, Noah, that's pretty much all we got for the celebration of Godzilla's 70th anniversary. Is there anything you want to say before we get out of here?
Well, to any current fans of the franchise, we bid you a happy anniversary. To any new fans, oh well, strap on, because it's going to be one hell of a long ride after this.
Yeah.
Because I know for a fact Goji ain't going anywhere.
Yep. And we have the 2014 Godzilla movie to thank for that. That being said, though, it's been fun, y'all. We hope y'all enjoyed this momentous occasion. Go watch yourself a Godzilla movie and enjoy the fuck out of this beloved franchise. Catch you later, y'all.
Hasta la vista.
Where you going? There you go.